I had butterflies dancing in my stomach as I dialed Uncle Harold's number, practically bouncing on my toes with excitement. Tomorrow was Emma's big day, and I could barely contain myself about being her maid of honor. The phone rang twice before his familiar warm voice answered. "Uncle Harold, I can't wait for tomorrow. Emma's going to look absolutely stunning, and I've got my speech all ready. This is going to be the most beautiful wedding ever." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Then came his gentle, confused voice that would haunt me forever. "Honey, that was last week." My world tilted sideways. The phone slipped from my trembling hands, crashing to the kitchen floor as the devastating truth crashed over me like a tsunami. My only sister had gotten married without me. My fingers shook as I picked up the phone and immediately called my cousin Bradley. "Please let Uncle Harold be confused about dates. Please let this be some horrible misunderstanding. Bradley, tell me Emma's wedding is tomorrow. Please tell me Uncle Harold mixed up the dates." The uncomfortable pause before Bradley spoke made my chest tighten. "Rita, the ceremony was beautiful. Emma looked radiant in that vintage lace dress. The reception at the Riverside Country Club was incredible. Where were you?" everyone kept asking. My knees buckled. I gripped the kitchen counter as waves of nausea crashed over me. "I wasn't invited, Bradley. I had no idea it already happened." Another awful silence. "That can't be right. You're her sister. Her only sister." Next, I called Mom. Patricia answered on the first ring, her voice strangely cautious. "Rita, sweetheart, how are you feeling?" "Mom, did you go to Emma's wedding last week?" "Well, yes, of course I did. Your father and I assumed you decided not to attend. Emma seemed upset that you weren't there, but she said she understood you had your reasons." My heart shattered into a million pieces. "What reasons? I never even knew there was a wedding to attend." "Oh, honey, that can't be possible. Emma's been planning this for months. We've all been discussing it at family dinners." But I hadn't been invited to any family dinners recently. Emma always claimed they were canceled or postponed whenever I asked. I threw on my jacket and drove straight to Emma's apartment across town, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe she'd been trying to reach me and something went wrong with my phone. Her spare key was still hidden under the fake rock by her door. I let myself in calling her name, but the apartment was eerily quiet. Wedding gifts covered every surface, beautiful silver picture frames, crystal vases, and elegant china sets still in their boxes. A stunning white dress with intricate beadwork hung in her bedroom closet tags still attached. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma's neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had always been kind to me. "Saw you going into Emma's place. She and that handsome new husband of hers left for Hawaii yesterday morning. Looked so happy with their matching luggage sets." Hawaii? They were on their honeymoon while I was just discovering the wedding had happened. I walked back to the living room feeling like I was moving through thick fog. That's when I noticed the mail pile on her kitchen counter. Among the bills and catalogs, I spotted a cream-colored envelope with elegant gold lettering. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was a wedding invitation. For Emma's wedding. But instead of my name written in beautiful calligraphy, it simply said, "Occupant," in Emma's handwriting. The room spun around me. She had deliberately addressed my invitation to "Occupant" instead of my name. This wasn't an oversight or a postal mistake. This was intentional. I sank onto her couch, staring at the invitation that should have been mine. The date, time, and location were all there. The wedding I should have been part of had happened without me even knowing. My phone buzzed again. A notification from a group chat I'd never seen before. Somehow I'd been added to a thread called Emma's Big Day Planning. Months of messages scrolled before my eyes. Mom, Dad, Bradley, cousin, Sarah, Uncle Harold, even my grandmother's sister, Aunt Rose, all discussing flowers, music, catering, seating arrangements. Everyone knew. Everyone had been involved. Everyone except me. I scrolled through message after message, seeing my family plan every detail of my sister's wedding while deliberately excluding me from the conversation. There were photos of dress shopping trips, cake tasting appointments, venue walkthroughs, a whole world of wedding preparation that had happened in secret. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. A handwritten note tucked between wedding cards in Emma's distinctive looping handwriting. Some bridges are better left burned. The note wasn't addressed to anyone. It was just sitting there like a cruel reminder of her intention. Sunday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my devastated mood perfectly. I drove to my parents' house needing answers that only they could provide. Dad was washing his car in the driveway when I pulled up, and his face immediately showed guilt when he saw me approaching. "Rita, honey, we need to talk," he said, setting down his sponge and avoiding my eyes. Inside their cozy kitchen, Mom bustled around making coffee with nervous energy while Dad sat across from me at the familiar oak table where we'd shared countless family meals. "I need to understand why my own sister got married without telling me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rage building inside my chest. Mom and Dad exchanged worried glances. Finally, Dad cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Emma told us you'd been having some difficulties lately. She was concerned that you might not be in the right headspace for her wedding day." "What difficulties? What are you talking about?" Mom sat down beside Dad, wringing her hands nervously. "She said you'd been acting unstable, Rita, that you were jealous of her engagement and had made some concerning comments about ruining her special day." I stared at them in complete shock. "I never said anything like that. I was thrilled about her engagement. I helped her pick out her ring setting 6 months ago. She told us you'd threaten to cause a scene if you were invited," Dad continued reluctantly. "She was heartbroken about it, but she felt she had to protect her wedding day." The lies were so outrageous I could barely process them. "When did I supposedly threaten this? I haven't even talked to Emma in 2 weeks because she keeps canceling our plans." Mom looked confused now. "She said you two had a big fight about her choice of wedding venue, that you called her selfish and said you'd make sure everyone knew how terrible she was treating you." "None of that happened. We never fought about anything. She never even told me where the wedding was going to be." I pulled out my phone and showed them my text history with Emma. Weeks of me suggesting coffee dates, sister shopping trips, and offers to help with wedding planning. All met with Emma's responses claiming she was too busy or that plans had changed. My parents studied the messages, their expressions growing more troubled by the minute. "There's something else," I said, pulling up the group chat I'd discovered. "Look at this planning thread. Everyone in our family was involved except me. This wasn't about protecting her wedding from my supposed instability. This was about deliberately excluding me." Dad's face grew pale as he scrolled through months of family coordination that had intentionally left me out. Before they could respond, my phone rang. Cousin Sarah's name appeared on the screen. I answered on speaker. "Sarah, I need you to tell me exactly what Emma said about me regarding her wedding." Sarah's voice was cautious. "Rita, she told us you were going through a really rough patch. She said you'd been saying strange things about the family and that she was worried about your mental health. She asked us to be patient with you because you weren't yourself lately." "What strange things did she claim?" I said. "She told me you accused her of trying to steal your inheritance from Grandma Ruth, and that you said you'd prove to everyone how manipulative she really was. Rita, she was really concerned about you." My inheritance from Grandma Ruth, the mountain cabin that our grandmother had left specifically to me because I was the only grandchild who visited her regularly during her final months. Emma had always resented that decision. "Sarah, I never said any of those things. Emma is lying." "But why would she lie about something so serious?" I thought about the note I'd found in Emma's apartment. Some bridges are better left burned. Maybe Emma had been planning to burn our relationship for reasons I was only beginning to understand. After hanging up with Sarah, I called my best friend Jessica, hoping she might have some perspective on Emma's behavior. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry about the wedding situation," Jessica said immediately. "Emma actually came to see me about 6 weeks ago. She was really worried about you." My stomach dropped. "What did she tell you?" "She said you'd been acting erratically and that you might start saying strange things about your family. She asked me to let her know if you seemed to be struggling or if you said anything concerning about her. I thought she was just being a caring sister." Emma had been systematically poisoning every relationship in my life, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state with everyone I cared about. She'd created a narrative where I was the unstable, jealous sister who couldn't be trusted around her perfect wedding. But why? What could motivate someone to destroy their own sister so completely? I drove back to Emma's apartment determined to find more answers. This time, I searched more thoroughly. In her bedroom dresser, I found her old cell phone, the one she'd replaced 2 months ago. It was still charged and she hadn't cleared the messages. What I found there made my blood freeze. Text conversations between Emma and her new husband Derek going back 6 months. Messages that revealed a conspiracy so cruel and calculated that I could barely believe my own sister had written them. Emma to Derek. Phase 1 complete. I've started telling everyone Rita is unstable. Need to be subtle but consistent. Derek to Emma. Brilliant. Once we establish the pattern, we can move to phase 2. How's the family responding? Emma to Derek. Mom and Dad are concerned. They're starting to question her behavior even though she hasn't done anything wrong. It's working perfectly. Derek to Emma. Good. Remember, we need everyone to believe she's mentally unfit. That's the only way to eliminate Rita from our lives completely and get what we need. Emma to Derek. I still can't believe Grandma Ruth left her that cabin instead of splitting it between us. Rita doesn't deserve a $200,000 inheritance. Derek to Emma. Don't worry, baby. Once we prove she's incompetent, we can contest the will. That cabin will be ours soon enough. My sister and her husband had been orchestrating my social destruction for months, all to steal my inheritance and remove me from Emma's life entirely. The next morning, I sat in the parking lot outside my bank, Emma's old phone clutched in my shaking hands as I read message after message detailing their conspiracy. But the text conversations hinted at something even worse than character assassination. There were references to financial preparations and accessing Rita's accounts. Inside the bank, I requested a meeting with my account manager, Jennifer Walsh, a professional woman in her 40s who had handled my grandmother's estate transfer. "Ms. Rita, what can I help you with today?" Jennifer asked as we settled into her private office. "I need to review all activity on my accounts for the past 6 months. I'm concerned there may have been unauthorized access." Jennifer's fingers flew across her keyboard, and her expression grew troubled as she studied her screen. "I see several transactions here that are unusual for your typical spending patterns. There's also a note in your file about a joint account that was opened 3 months ago." "A joint account? I never opened a joint account." Jennifer's face went pale. "According to our records, you came in with your sister Emma in early March to set up joint access to your savings account. You both provided identification and signed the paperwork together." My heart pounded. "I was never here in March. I've never set up any joint accounts. Can you show me the signature cards?" Jennifer pulled up the documents, and I stared at what appeared to be my signature on forms I'd never seen before. But looking closely, I could see subtle differences in the handwriting. Someone had forged my signature convincingly enough to fool bank employees. "Jennifer, this signature isn't mine. Someone has been impersonating me." She studied the signature more carefully, then compared it to other documents in my file. Her expression grew grave. "You're right. The pressure and angle are different from your authentic signatures. I need to freeze these accounts immediately and contact our fraud department." Over the next hour, we discovered the full extent of Emma's theft. She had been making gradual withdrawals from my savings account for 3 months, always staying under amounts that would trigger automatic alerts. Small transfers of $300 here, $500 there, totaling nearly $15,000. My entire inheritance from Grandma Ruth's life insurance policy had been systematically stolen. "There's more," Jennifer said quietly. 3 weeks ago, someone attempted to access your safety deposit box using a key that appeared to be duplicated. Our security cameras caught the attempt. She pulled up grainy security footage showing Emma at the safety deposit box area trying different keys before apparently giving up and leaving quickly. "What's in that box, Rita?" "The deed to my inherited property, the mountain cabin Grandma Ruth left me." Jennifer's expression turned extremely serious. "Rita, this appears to be a comprehensive identity theft scheme targeting your inheritance. You need to contact the police immediately." That afternoon, I sat in Detective Maria Santos's office, surrounded by printed bank statements, forged documents, and Emma's incriminating text messages. Detective Santos was a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in financial crimes. "Your sister has been quite busy," Detective Santos said, reviewing the evidence. "Identity theft, bank fraud, forgery, and attempted theft of property deeds. But I suspect there's even more to this story." She was right. Over the next 2 days, her investigation uncovered additional crimes that painted Emma as far more dangerous than I'd imagined. Emma had been intercepting my mail for months, using a postal forwarding service she'd set up fraudulently in my name. Important documents, tax forms, insurance statements, and legal notices had all been redirected to a post office box she controlled. Detective Santos showed me copies of credit applications Emma had submitted using my personal information. She'd attempted to open 5 different credit cards in my name, successfully obtaining 2 with a combined limit of $12,000 that she'd maxed out immediately. "But here's what concerns me most," Detective Santos said, sliding another document across her desk. "We found this in your sister's email account after obtaining a warrant." It was a partially completed legal petition. Emma had been working with a lawyer to file for guardianship over me, claiming I was mentally incompetent and unable to manage my own financial affairs. The petition cited my supposed erratic behavior and concerning statements as evidence that I needed court-appointed supervision of my inheritance. All the lies she'd been spreading about my mental state weren't just cruel family manipulation. They were building a legal case to have me declared incompetent so she could control my inheritance entirely. If this petition had been successful, Detective Santos explained, your sister would have gained legal authority over all your assets, including the mountain cabin. You would have effectively lost control of your own life. The mountain cabin that Grandma Ruth had left me wasn't just a sentimental gift. Property records showed it was worth over $200,000 and sat on 15 acres of pristine wilderness that developers had been trying to purchase for years. Emma hadn't just wanted to exclude me from her wedding. She'd been systematically destroying my reputation, stealing my money, and laying groundwork to steal my property and independence. Her marriage to Derek wasn't just a celebration of love. It was the final step in a calculated plan to eliminate me from her life entirely while taking everything our grandmother had left me. 4 weeks after discovering Emma's crimes, I was sitting in my apartment trying to decide whether to press charges when I heard familiar laughter echoing through my hallway. My stomach dropped as Emma's voice carried through my door, bright and cheerful, as if nothing had happened. A knock interrupted my racing thoughts, followed by Emma's sing-song voice. "Rita, open up, sister. We have wonderful news to share." I opened the door to find Emma glowing with a tan from her Hawaiian honeymoon, wearing a flowing sundress and beaming smile. Beside her stood Derek, a tall man with perfectly styled brown hair and an expensive watch, carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing the kind of smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Surprise!" Emma squealed, throwing her arms around me in an enthusiastic hug. "We're back from paradise and we brought gifts." I stood frozen in my doorway, staring at my sister, who was acting as if she hadn't just spent months systematically destroying my life and stealing my inheritance. "We missed you so much in Hawaii," Derek said smoothly, his voice warm and charming. "Emma talked about you constantly. She felt terrible that there was some mix-up with the wedding invitations." "Mix-up," I repeated slowly. Emma's face crumpled with perfectly performed sadness. "Oh, Rita, I've been absolutely devastated thinking you were angry with me. When you didn't show up to the ceremony, I was heartbroken. Mom said there must have been some misunderstanding about the date or the invitation." I let them into my apartment, fascinated by the audacity of their performance. Emma settled onto my couch as if we were simply resuming normal sister visits, while Derek poured champagne into my coffee mugs since I didn't own proper glasses. "The thing is," Emma continued with theatrical emotion, "Derek and I have been talking about how to make this up to you. We want to heal our relationship and prove that you're the most important person in my life." Derek nodded earnestly. Family means everything to Emma. She's been planning something special to show you how much she loves you. Emma leaned forward with sparkling eyes. "Rita, we want to use Grandma Ruth's cabin for our post-wedding celebration. All our friends who couldn't make it to Hawaii are dying to celebrate with us, and your beautiful mountain property would be the perfect place for an intimate gathering." I felt like I was watching a masterclass in manipulation. After stealing my money and attempting to steal my property through legal fraud, Emma was now asking me to voluntarily hand over the cabin for her party. "It would just be for one weekend," Derek added persuasively. "Maybe 20 or 30 of our closest friends. We'd handle all the logistics and clean up. You wouldn't have to do anything except say yes." Emma's eyes filled with crocodile tears. "This would mean so much to me, Rita. It would prove that you forgive me for whatever misunderstanding happened with the wedding. I need to know my sister doesn't hate me." When I hesitated, Emma's demeanor shifted slightly. Her voice took on an edge hidden beneath the sweet tone. "Unless you're still holding grudges about the wedding thing. I really hope you're not going to be vindictive about an honest mistake." "Honest mistake," I repeated. "The invitation confusion," Derek said, quickly shooting Emma a warning look. "These things happen with wedding planning. So much chaos and stress." Emma nodded vigorously. "Exactly. And now we have a chance to move past it. All you have to do is let us borrow the cabin for our celebration, and everything between us goes back to normal." I studied their faces, seeing calculation behind Emma's pleading expression and something cold in Derek's charming smile. "I need some time to think about it," I said carefully. Emma's mask slipped for just a moment, irritation flashing across her features before she recovered her sweet expression. "Think about what it's just a simple favor between sisters." "Rita," Derek said, with what sounded like gentle reasoning, "Emma has been through so much emotional pain thinking you two were estranged. This cabin party would heal everything between you. Unless you want people to think you're being selfish and jealous about your sister's happiness." The threat was subtle but clear. Agree to their demands or be painted as the bitter sister who couldn't celebrate Emma's marriage. "How many people are we talking about exactly?" I asked. Emma brightened immediately. "Oh, maybe 40 or 50. Nothing too crazy. Just our college friends, Derek's work colleagues, some people from my book club. A nice intimate gathering. 50 people was hardly intimate for a 2-bedroom mountain cabin, but I nodded thoughtfully. And you mentioned handling all the logistics, I continued. Derek pulled out his phone, swiping through what appeared to be planning notes. We've already reached out to catering companies in the area. There's a fantastic event rental place that can provide tables, chairs, a sound system for music. We want this to be first class all the way. Something about his phrasing made my stomach turn. Already reached out. You've been planning this before asking me. Emma waved her hand dismissively. We were just getting preliminary quotes. We knew you'd say yes because you love me. Derek's phone buzzed and he glanced at it with satisfaction. Actually, great news. The caterer just confirmed availability for next weekend. Everything's falling into place perfectly. My blood turned cold. They hadn't just planned this party before asking my permission. They'd booked vendors and confirmed dates, treating my consent as a foregone conclusion. Next weekend? I asked slowly. We sent save the dates to everyone weeks ago, Emma said casually, then caught herself. I mean, we mentioned the possibility to our friends. Nothing official until you give us the green light. But Derek was still looking at his phone, and his next words revealed the full scope of their presumption. The deposit for the event rental company went through perfectly, he said to Emma. And I confirmed with the cleaning service that they'll have the cabin spotless before guests arrive. He looked up to find both Emma and me staring at him. Deposit? I asked quietly. Derek's confident expression faltered. I meant tentative deposit. Pending your approval, of course. Emma jumped in quickly. What Derek means is that we were so confident in your sisterly love that we made some preliminary arrangements. Nothing that can't be canceled if you're going to be difficult about this. Difficult. They'd planned an entire event at my property, spent money on vendors, invited guests, and I was being difficult by not immediately agreeing to their scheme. Actually, there's one more tiny thing, Emma said with forced casualness. Some of our friends were so excited about the mountain experience that they've asked about possibly extending the weekend into a whole week, like a rustic retreat experience. Derek nodded enthusiastically. We could charge them a small fee to cover expenses. Nothing major, just enough to offset costs and maybe make a little profit. Think of it as a business opportunity for you. They wanted to turn my inherited cabin into a commercial rental property for their profit, treating my family inheritance as their personal business venture. You've already been advertising this to your friends as a paid retreat, I asked. Emma's face flushed. Not advertising, just mentioning, and only to people who could afford a premium mountain experience. Derek's phone buzzed again, and this time his satisfied smile was unmistakable. Excellent. Everyone's confirmed for the week-long package. We've got 12 couples signed up at $400 per couple. That's almost $5,000 in revenue for 1 week. He looked up to find me staring at him in shock. Revenue split between us, of course, Emma added quickly. We're family. We share everything. They had turned my grandmother's cabin, my most treasured inheritance, into their personal profit-making scheme without my knowledge or consent. They'd taken deposits from guests, booked vendors, and planned an entire week-long business operation using my property as collateral. I told Emma and Derek I needed exactly 24 hours to consider their cabin proposal, watching their expressions carefully as they agreed with forced smiles. The moment they left my apartment, I called Detective Santos. They're escalating, I told her. Emma and Derek have already planned an entire commercial event at my cabin without permission. They've taken money from guests and booked vendors. Detective Santos was quiet for a moment. Rita, this sounds like they're accelerating their timeline for some reason. My investigation has uncovered some additional information about your sister and her husband that you need to know. The next morning, I met Detective Santos at a coffee shop downtown, where she slid a thick folder across the table containing the results of her expanded investigation. "Your sister's financial crimes extend far beyond what she's done to you," Detective Santos began. "We've identified at least 6 elderly victims in the surrounding counties who've been targeted by similar schemes." She showed me photographs and case files of senior citizens who had lost thousands of dollars to someone matching Emma's description and methods. Margaret Chen, age 78, lost $12,000 after someone posing as a financial advisor convinced her to transfer her savings for investment opportunities, Detective Santos explained. Frank Rodriguez, 81, had someone forge his signature to access his safety deposit box containing family jewelry. The pattern was sickeningly familiar. Emma had been running elaborate confidence schemes on vulnerable elderly people throughout the region, using her natural charm and fake credentials to gain their trust before stealing their assets. But here's what's most disturbing. Detective Santos continued opening another file. "We found evidence that Emma has been using multiple false identities, social media profiles, fake business cards, even a fraudulent financial advisor certification." She showed me printed screenshots of Facebook and LinkedIn profiles featuring Emma's photograph, but different names: Emma Sullivan, financial consultant; Emma Davidson, estate planning specialist; Emma Morgan, investment advisor. She's been systematically targeting seniors through social media and community groups, posing as a professional who can help them protect their assets from family members who might take advantage of them. The irony was devastating. Emma had been warning elderly people about family members who might steal from them while she was the one robbing them blind. Detective Santos opened another folder containing bank records and financial documents. Emma's lifestyle doesn't match her legitimate income. She works part-time at a boutique clothing store, earning maybe $20,000 annually. But her spending patterns show expensive vacations, designer clothing, luxury car payments, and high-end restaurant bills totaling over $60,000 this year alone. How is she funding that lifestyle? Through theft, fraud, and what appears to be a gambling addiction. We found records showing Emma has been frequenting casinos in 3 different states, often losing thousands of dollars in single nights. Derek wasn't innocent either. Detective Santos showed me a background check revealing his own criminal history. Derek Williams has been married twice before, both times to women with significant assets, who later discovered money missing from their accounts. His first wife, Linda Patterson, is actually still legally married to him. Their divorce was never finalized, which means his marriage to your sister is completely fraudulent. My head spun as the implications sank in. Emma doesn't know she's not legally married. We don't think so. Derek appears to specialize in bigamous relationships with women who have access to valuable assets. He moves in, helps them steal or manipulate their way to money, then disappears once the heat gets too high. Detective Santos showed me surveillance photos of Derek entering casinos, meeting with known loan sharks, and visiting expensive jewelry stores where he'd attempted to sell items that matched descriptions of pieces stolen from his previous victims. We believe Derek's ultimate plan is to disappear with whatever money they can extract from your inheritance, leaving Emma to face all the criminal charges alone. She opened a final file containing the most shocking discovery of all. Rita, we've been monitoring Derek's communications, and we found evidence that he's planning to leave the country next month. He's been researching non-extradition countries and has already purchased a one-way ticket to Costa Rica under a false identity. Derek had been playing an even deeper game than Emma realized. While she thought they were partners in crime building a life together, he was actually setting her up as a scapegoat for their joint criminal enterprise. "There's something else," Detective Santos said quietly. "We found communications suggesting Derek may have been planning to harm you if the legal incompetency petition didn't work." She showed me printed emails between Derek and an unknown contact discussing permanent solutions to the sister problem and references to making it look like an accident if other methods failed. My sister had married a man who was not only stealing from her and planning to abandon her, but who had also considered murdering me to access my inheritance. "We need to move fast," Detective Santos said. "If Derek suspects we're onto him, he might accelerate his exit plan or take desperate measures. Are you willing to help us gather evidence?" I thought about my grandmother Ruth, who had worked 2 jobs her entire life to buy that mountain cabin where she'd spent her happiest years. She'd left it to me because she trusted me to honor her memory and protect the place she'd loved most. Emma and Derek weren't just stealing money or property. They were destroying the legacy of a woman who had sacrificed everything to provide for her family. "What do you need me to do?" Detective Santos smiled grimly. "We're going to let them think their cabin plan is working. But we'll be recording every word they say, and when they reveal the full scope of their crimes, we'll have everything we need to put them away for a very long time." She explained the plan in detail. I would agree to let them use the cabin, but with hidden cameras and audio recording devices installed throughout the property. When Emma and Derek arrived with their guests and began their fraudulent business operation, law enforcement would have documented evidence of their crimes in progress. We'll also have Derek's first wife, Linda, there to confront him about their illegal marriage, and representatives from the FBI Financial Crimes Unit will be present to arrest them on federal charges. It was risky, but it was the only way to ensure Emma and Derek faced justice for all their victims, not just me. "There's one more thing you should know," Detective Santos said as we prepared to leave. "We contacted some of the elderly victims Emma scammed, and they want to be part of taking her down. They're willing to testify and help with the investigation." She handed me a letter written in shaky handwriting by Margaret Chen, the 78-year-old woman who had lost $12,000 to Emma's fake investment scheme. "Dear Rita," the letter began, "Detective Santos told me about what your sister did to you. I want you to know that you're not alone. What she did to me nearly cost me my house because I couldn't pay my medical bills after she took my savings. But knowing that she's finally going to face justice gives me hope. Thank you for being brave enough to stop her before she hurts more people." Reading Margaret's words, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about my stolen inheritance anymore. Emma had been preying on vulnerable people throughout our community, and I had the power to stop her. I was going to make sure she faced the consequences of every single crime she'd committed. 3 days later, I called Emma with my decision about the cabin. "I've thought about your proposal," I said, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "I want to say yes, but I need to see exactly what you're planning before I give final approval." Emma's excitement was immediately obvious. "Rita, I knew you'd come through for us. You're the best sister in the world. I want to meet you and Derek at the cabin tomorrow afternoon so you can walk me through your plans in detail." "Of course we'll bring all our planning materials and show you exactly how amazing this is going to be." That night, I drove up to the mountain cabin with Detective Santos and a technical specialist who installed hidden cameras and microphones throughout the property. The devices were virtually invisible, tucked into light fixtures, decorative objects, and even the stone fireplace mantle. "Remember," Detective Santos said as we tested the equipment, "let them talk as much as possible. Ask questions about their business model, their guest arrangements, and especially about the money they've collected. We need them to incriminate themselves clearly." The next afternoon, Emma and Derek arrived in Derek's expensive silver sedan, both dressed casually, but carrying several folders and a laptop computer. I met them on the cabin's wraparound porch, which overlooked 15 acres of pristine forest that my grandmother had loved so deeply. "Rita, this place is even more beautiful than I remembered," Emma gushed, spinning around with her arms outstretched. Our guests are going to absolutely love it here. Derek was already taking photos with his phone, documenting angles and features like he was planning a real estate listing. Show me exactly what you have in mind, I said, unlocking the cabin door. Inside, Derek spread papers across the rustic dining table while Emma opened her laptop to reveal detailed planning documents. We've divided the week into 2 phases, Derek explained with professional enthusiasm. Monday through Wednesday is the intimate retreat experience for 12 couples. Thursday through Sunday is the larger celebration party for about 60 people. Emma pulled up a spreadsheet showing guest names, payment amounts, and accommodation assignments. Everyone's already paid their deposits. We collected $8,000 just for the first phase. $8,000. I repeated, making sure the hidden microphones captured the amount clearly. $400 per couple for the retreat experience, Derek confirmed proudly. But here's the brilliant part. We're also charging extra fees for premium services. He showed me another document listing additional costs: guided nature walks for $50 per person, gourmet meal packages for $75 per day, professional photography sessions for $150 per couple. The total revenue potential is over $15,000 for 1 week, Emma said excitedly. After expenses, we're looking at about $10,000 in pure profit. Derek nodded enthusiastically. We're calling it Mountain Paradise Luxury Retreats. Emma designed a whole brand identity with logos and marketing materials. Emma turned her laptop screen toward me, revealing a professional-looking website featuring photos of my grandmother's cabin, along with testimonials from supposed previous guests. This website has been live for 2 months, Derek said proudly. We've already got bookings for 3 more retreats this summer. This could become a real business, Rita. They had been planning this elaborate scheme long before Emma's wedding, using my property as the foundation for a fraudulent business venture without any legal right to do so. The bookings look impressive, I said carefully. How did you get so many people interested so quickly? Emma and Derek exchanged pleased glances. We targeted specific demographics through social media advertising, Derek explained. Wealthy retirees looking for authentic mountain experiences, corporate executives wanting unique team-building locations, even some influencers who pay premium rates for Instagram-worthy venues. Emma pulled up additional files showing their targeted advertising campaigns, complete with fake reviews and fabricated testimonials about previous stays at the cabin. We've been promoting this as an exclusive family-owned retreat that's been operating for years, Emma said. People love the authenticity story. Derek leaned back in his chair with satisfaction. The beauty of this model is that it's completely scalable. Once we establish the brand here, we can franchise the concept to other properties. Franchise, I asked. We find other property owners who want passive income from their land, Emma explained. We handle all the marketing and guest management, they provide the location, and we split the profits. It's a win-win. They were planning to use my grandmother's cabin as the flagship property for a much larger fraudulent business operation targeting property owners throughout the region. There's just one tiny legal detail we need to handle, Derek said casually. Since you're the property owner, we'll need you to sign some paperwork transferring temporary management rights to our business entity. He pulled out legal documents that I recognized from Detective Santos's investigation. They were essentially trying to get me to sign over control of my property to their fake company. It's just a formality, Emma assured me. You maintain full ownership, but it allows us to operate legally and handle any issues with guests or vendors. I pretended to study the documents while internally celebrating that they were incriminating themselves so thoroughly. This all sounds very professional, I said. But I'm curious about something. Have either of you run hospitality businesses before? Derek's confident expression flickered slightly. I have extensive experience in business development and investment management. What companies have you worked with? Another pause. Various consulting firms and investment groups. mostly private entities. Emma jumped in quickly. Derek's incredibly talented with business strategy. He's the one who figured out how to monetize your beautiful cabin. I nodded thoughtfully. And Emma, I know you work at the boutique downtown. Have you taken time off for all this wedding and business planning? Emma's face flushed. Actually, I quit my job last month. This retreat business is going to be my full-time career. How have you been supporting yourself since quitting? Derek and Emma exchanged uncomfortable glances. We've been living off our savings, Emma said unconvincingly. And some early revenue from bookings, Derek added. I knew from Detective Santos's investigation that their savings consisted entirely of money stolen from elderly victims and fraudulent credit accounts opened in my name. I'm impressed by how much work you've put into this, I said. But before I sign anything, I want to make sure I understand the financial arrangements completely. Derek's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it with visible excitement. Perfect timing, he said to Emma. Linda just confirmed her flight for tomorrow. Emma looked confused. Linda. Derek's face went pale as he realized his mistake. Linda who? I asked innocently. Just a business associate, Derek stammered. Someone who might be interested in investing in our retreat concept. But Emma was staring at Derek with growing suspicion. You've never mentioned anyone named Linda before. Derek's phone buzzed again, and this time Emma grabbed it from his hands before he could react. Her face went white as she read the message. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, husband, Emma read aloud in a shaking voice. It's been too long since we've been together, and I have so much to tell you about our legal situation. Derek lunged for his phone, but Emma held it away from him. Husband, Emma whispered. Derek, who is Linda? The room filled with tense silence as Derek realized his entire deception was unraveling. Emma, I can explain, he started desperately. But before he could continue, car doors slammed outside, and Detective Santos's voice carried through the cabin windows. FBI, we have a warrant. Derek's face crumpled as he understood that his carefully constructed criminal enterprise was finished. Emma stared at me in shock as federal agents surrounded the cabin. Rita, what's happening? I looked at my sister, the woman who had systematically destroyed my reputation, stolen my inheritance, and conspired to steal my property, and felt a profound sadness mixed with relief. Justice, Emma, finally justice. 6 months later, I sat in the gallery of the federal courthouse as Judge Patricia Williams read the sentences that would define the next decade of Emma and Derek's lives. Emma Collins, you have pleaded guilty to 15 felony counts, including fraud identity theft, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit theft. The court sentences you to 8 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims totaling $67,000. Emma stood beside her court-appointed attorney wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of the designer clothes she'd favored during her criminal spree. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her crimes and the reality of their consequences. Derek Williams, you have pleaded guilty to 12 felony counts, including bigamy, fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and threats of violence. The court sentences you to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay full restitution and surrender all assets obtained through criminal activity. Derek's expensive watch and confident smile were long gone, replaced by handcuffs and the hollow expression of a man whose elaborate cons had finally caught up with him. During the investigation, Linda Patterson, Derek's actual wife, had provided crucial testimony about his pattern of targeting women with valuable assets. She'd been searching for him for 2 years after he'd disappeared with her inheritance from her late mother. Your crimes targeted the most vulnerable members of our community. Judge Williams continued addressing both defendants. Elderly citizens who trusted you with their life savings, family members who believed in your love and loyalty. The harm you've caused extends far beyond financial loss to deep emotional trauma that your victims will carry for years. The courtroom gallery was filled with many of those victims. Margaret Chen, the 78-year-old woman Emma had scammed out of $12,000, sat in the front row with her daughter. Frank Rodriguez, who had lost family jewelry to Emma's forgery schemes, was there with his grandson. 6 other elderly victims had traveled from across the state to see justice served. After the sentencing, Detective Santos approached me in the courthouse hallway. "How are you feeling?" she asked gently. I considered her question carefully. The past 6 months had been emotionally exhausting, filled with court appearances, victim statements, and the painful process of rebuilding relationships with family members who had believed Emma's lies about my mental health. "Relieved," I said finally, "and grateful." My parents, Patricia and George, had been devastated to learn the truth about Emma's systematic deception. They'd spent weeks apologizing for believing her fabrications and working to rebuild our damaged relationship. Uncle Harold had become one of my strongest supporters, helping me process the betrayal while encouraging me to focus on healing rather than bitterness. The financial recovery had been remarkably successful. Thanks to Detective Santos's thorough investigation, I'd recovered all the money Emma had stolen from my accounts, plus additional damages awarded by the court. The fraudulent credit cards she'd opened in my name were canceled, and my credit report was cleared of all related debt. Most importantly, my grandmother's cabin remained safely in my possession exactly as she'd intended. But the real transformation had happened in how I chose to honor her memory. 3 months after Emma's arrest, I'd established the Ruth Collins Foundation for Elder Protection, using the mountain cabin as a retreat center for seniors who had been victims of financial fraud and abuse. The peaceful setting that my grandmother had loved became a place where other elderly people could find healing and community after experiencing betrayal similar to what Emma had inflicted. Margaret Chen had been our first retreat participant, spending a week at the cabin, where she'd connected with other survivors and begun rebuilding her confidence after Emma's theft. Frank Rodriguez had organized a support group that met monthly, helping newly discovered victims navigate the legal system and emotional recovery process. "Your grandmother would be so proud," Uncle Harold had told me during our last visit to the cabin. "Ruth always believed in turning pain into purpose, and that's exactly what you've done." The foundation had also partnered with Detective Santos to create educational programs helping seniors recognize and avoid financial scams. We'd developed workshops that local police departments used throughout the region, potentially saving countless elderly people from becoming victims like those Emma had targeted. On a personal level, the experience had taught me valuable lessons about trust, family loyalty, and the importance of protecting vulnerable people in our community. I'd learned that sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the deepest betrayals, but that doesn't mean we should stop believing in genuine love and loyalty. The key was learning to recognize the difference between people who consistently showed care through their actions versus those who used emotional manipulation to exploit relationships. My relationship with my parents had actually grown stronger after working through the damage Emma's lies had caused. We'd all learned to communicate more directly and question assumptions rather than accepting dramatic claims without evidence. 6 months after the trial, I was working in the foundation office at the cabin when I heard a familiar voice calling my name from the main trail. Thomas Martinez, a victim advocate who worked with the district attorney's office, emerged from the forest carrying a backpack and wearing a smile that had become increasingly important to me over recent months. "How did the new volunteer training session go?" he asked, joining me on the porch where I'd been reviewing applications from seniors who wanted to become peer counselors for other fraud victims. Incredible, I said, feeling genuine excitement about our expanding programs. We have 12 new volunteers ready to help with our next retreat session. Margaret Chen is going to lead a workshop on rebuilding financial confidence, and Frank Rodriguez wants to start a creative writing group for people to share their recovery stories. Thomas had become both a professional colleague and personal friend through our shared work helping fraud victims. His own grandmother had been targeted by scammers similar to Emma, though fortunately without financial loss. His dedication to protecting elderly community members matched my own, and our partnership had grown into something deeper over time. "There's something I've been wanting to discuss with you," Thomas said, settling into the rocking chair beside mine. I looked up from my paperwork, noting the slightly nervous energy in his expression. "The district attorney's office is launching a statewide initiative to combat elder fraud, and they've asked me to head the program. But it would mean relocating to the state capital." My heart sank slightly. Thomas had become such an important part of both the foundation's work and my personal life. "That sounds like an incredible opportunity," I said, trying to keep my disappointment out of my voice. "It is," he agreed. "But I was hoping you might consider being my partner in the initiative. Not just professionally, but personally too." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small velvet box that made my heart skip several beats. "Rita, these past months working together have shown me that we share the same values, the same commitment to protecting people who can't protect themselves, and the same belief that good can come from even the worst situations. I love your strength, your compassion, and your ability to turn your own pain into healing for others." I stared at the ring box, feeling overwhelmed by emotions I hadn't expected to experience so soon after the trauma of Emma's betrayal. "I know the timing might seem complicated," Thomas continued gently, "but I also know that waiting for perfect timing means sometimes missing the right person entirely. Rita Collins, will you marry me and help me build a life dedicated to protecting the people who need advocates most?" Looking at Thomas, I saw everything Emma and Derek had pretended to be, but never actually were. Consistency between words and actions, genuine care for other people's well-being, honesty about intentions and feelings, partnership based on shared values rather than manipulation and exploitation. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how certain I felt. "Yes, I want to build that life with you." As Thomas slipped the ring onto my finger, I thought about my grandmother Ruth, who had always told me that the best relationships were built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and the commitment to help each other become better people. Emma had taught me painful but valuable lessons about recognizing deception and protecting myself from those who would exploit family bonds for personal gain. But Thomas was teaching me equally important lessons about recognizing genuine love and partnership. The mountain cabin where my grandmother had found peace would continue serving as a sanctuary for people recovering from betrayal and abuse. But it would also become the foundation for a new kind of family built on trust, shared purpose, and the commitment to use our experiences, both painful and joyful, to make our community safer for its most vulnerable members. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone close to you turned out to be completely different from who you thought they were? How did you rebuild trust in relationships after discovering such deep deception? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about overcoming family betrayal and finding strength in the most challenging circumstances. And don't forget to share this with anyone who might need to hear that it's possible to find justice and healing even after the deepest betrayals. Thank you for joining me on this journey from devastation to justice to hope. Remember that your worth isn't defined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond to their treatment. Sometimes protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. And sometimes the most painful experiences become the foundation for the most meaningful work you'll ever do. Until next time, trust your instincts protect your heart, and never stop believing that justice and genuine love are both possible even after the worst betrayals.